So here's the thing is, if the meaning is timeless, but our hermeneutics are determined by race or ethnicity, how then can we claim to know this timeless transcultural, transracial meaning?
I think in the third paragraph there, I think that most of those propositions we would essentially agree with, and it's making a point that you made earlier, that I emphasize that although the meaning of the passage of the Bible is timeless, okay, I think we would agree with that. The application of biblical teaching varies with the needs of individuals, cultures, and historical eras. So they're making the differentiation between getting to the author's meaning, that's the interpretation, versus the application. So, we want to aim for the correct interpretation of Scripture, but we recognize that can have various applications for different cultures. And I don't think we would disagree with that. I teach how to determine a culturally relevant application of a teaching of Scripture. That's what we used to call the old-fashioned version of contextual theology. Now that term has kind of shifted in meaning, but when I was in seminary 30 years ago, that's what that was. It was understanding the meaning of the text first, and then figuring out how does it apply to these different cultures. We have several discussions about how to apply the Bible in different cultural contexts. Students become more aware of how their own cultural biases and presuppositions color the reading of Scripture. Again, I think that it's possible. Like if we have no tools and no thought, no self-insight, yes, our cultural bias can distort our views of Scripture, but that's where the historical grammatical method is such a valuable tool to help us overcome that.
Because it gets us outside of our isolated cultural context. And I've taught this to Old Testament students when I teach my Old Testament ideas. They're like, hey, I know this sounds horrible. What happens here, this sounds terrible, doesn't it? They're like, yeah, this is horrible. It's like, but we're reading it through your cultural lens. You got to look at it through their cultural lens to understand what's happening in this passage. And that's what historical grammatical method ultimately does. But notice what they did here. In that last little thing, it says again, although the meaning of the passage of the Bible is timeless, the application of biblical teaching varies with needs of individuals, cultures, and historical eras. That's true, but hermeneutics is the way we get from that meaning to the application. This is the hermeneutics section. Notice he doesn't. That sentence has no transition thought. It has no mention of how hermeneutics gets us from meaning to that. Because what they've already said is that hermeneutics itself is a cultural method. It's a racial method. It's a gender method of whatever. So here's the thing is, if the meaning is timeless, but our hermeneutics are determined by race or ethnicity, how then can we claim to know this timeless transcultural, transracial meaning? We have no methodology to read that gets at that meaning. So what all they've done is really say is that there's no hermeneutic to help us understand the transcultural, timeless, transracial meaning, because all hermeneutics is about culture. You read it with your cultural lens. So they're affirming there's this transcendent ultimate meaning, but what they've done is say we have no actual transracial, transcultural way of reading the text. Then we're left with all subjective.
That's a very powerful insight. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what he did?
Yeah. So our position would say, yes, that meaning, the author's meaning is discoverable. Hermeneutics is the tool that we use to get there. But if we make hermeneutics itself subjective or relative, then our tool is bent from the beginning. And so how do we make a straight line at that point?